All right, it's going.
All right. So, welcome to the first Infinity podcast. This is the Infinity Community Podcast. We are here with Mr. Traveling Through Time, and he's here to share us with his Arkology project, which he's been working on for many, many years. How long ago did you start working on this project?
So I wanted to do a cob or straw bale subdevelopment this was like 2015. And this is kind of how it all started. And then I went from cob subdevelopments to skyscrapers, just out of my own kind of, I don't know. I thought it would be a good thing to do. And then from the skyscrapers, I kind of stumbled into the modular arcology systems.
And then from there, it's been like mostly designing the blueprints, calculating how much money everything's going to cost, and then thinking like what are the people going to be doing, what are the jobs people are going to have.
Yeah, so a lot of the economy is just your normal free market with small businesses and corporations. A lot of that doesn't change. What only changes is the city-state government and the infrastructure.
Right.
But yeah, a lot
And
of
it's going to be
calculations.
slightly different from like a typical country. Yeah, a lot of calculations, and from what I understand, like it's not as expensive as one might think.
Right. Steel is cheap, and we are using a truss system, and the trusses are actually like very, very thin. So you pay per ton for steel, and if you can get the trusses as light as possible and the building as light as possible, then you can do it for far less than you'd think.
That's right. I was looking at the video earlier, and I see it basically looks like a theme park. You know, I see like
Yeah.
roller coasters going around and rainbows and trees everywhere. It's like the whole thing. You're walking through a park. There are like water slides, and the transport systems are like
You have these cable cars going from one edge of the city to the next, and it takes like only a few minutes to get anywhere in the city with no car.
I think it's like almost a mile from one end to the other at the widest point. So if you're going on mass transit and the mass transit goes like 45 or 40-ish, that would be, like a minute and a half ride across the city?
Yeah, like a minute and a half, and I wonder, people would probably be going to like the theme park every day, because like it's like, from what I can tell, it's a large part of it. It's like recreation is very important in this community, and there's a lot of community centers too, a lot of parks, a lot of events, a lot of social gatherings. It seems that this would be what humanity would start to do now that we see, okay, we're mature enough as a species to not get us stuck in rhythms where we're just working constantly. You know, we can relegate a lot of labor to automatons and robots. So there's more leisure time in the city, and I think that's super, super important for building human relationships and building community.
I'm of the strong belief that I have this, it's not a conspiracy theory, but it's a theory that the Great Depression was us decoupling with the 5-day work week. And that's why there was so much unemployment, is because society was decoupling with the 5-day work week. And if businesses just simply switched to like a 3 or 4-day work week, then we could have maintained full employment during the Great Depression, and we would have like actually just avoided the whole thing altogether.
Right, but it's because like people have this idea in their heads that like we need to be working a certain amount, or else the whole thing's gonna go to shit. Even though we figured like going into the future we'd become more and more like our technology would start to serve us, and we wouldn't become slaves to the technology. And I still think that's true. It's just we got to play our cards right. We have to make sure that we're putting our happiness and well-being first and foremost. And the only way we're going to do that is if we're building these kinds of things from the grassroots, and we get a lot of people inspired with that vision. And inspiration is central to this, right? Like getting the idea out there, showing that it's okay to be creative, it's okay to share your vision with the world, because that's exactly what we need to get out of the status quo that we're in. I always thought like this would be like a really cool like scale model. If we could get like a scale model of this somewhere that people could just go visit and see and talk about, really like get an idea of the structure and what it would be like to live there.
So in theory, it can be 3D printed, but it would have to be done in sections because it's 80 million triangles. So my computer actually crashes just when I try to render frames of the city. I had to expand my RAM to 32 gigabytes, and now 32 gigabytes isn't even enough. So I actually bought a new computer to do the version 7 city, since it's twice as big as the version 6. So I'm actually like... So 5 years ago, computers could not load the entire city. They just weren't fast enough.
This is like cutting edge technology. Rendering that whole thing at once.
Yeah, my frame rate is terrible when I'm trying to work with it. I have to load it in pieces, so you can hide pieces of the city. So I hide like 2/3 of the city while I work on it. Otherwise, my frame rate is just brutal.
What are some other facilities in this city that are very like central to living in the city? Like, what is it like to live in the city? I think the question I want to ask.
Why wouldn't just a minute? Why wouldn't you have it so that the more distant stuff is extremely low res, and the stuff that is more relatively close to the camera is more high res to save RAM?
I'm not 100% sure on how to do that. The whole thing is already low poly. So if you zoom into the grasses are actually planes, and the trees don't have leaves, they're just like circles. So the whole thing is already low poly. It's just the scale of it is and that feature that you mentioned is like a fancier feature that gaming engines use, and this is for renders. So it when it renders something, it wants like the maximum clarity, pretty much as far as you can see. It does that for shadows, though, what you just described, but not for assets. But yeah, what was the other question?
I remember seeing videos on like the average rents that it would take to live here, right? Do you have like good calculations on that number?
So
like how much?
There's a ton of factors and variables. Like the interest rates are a big one. At 6% interest, you're going to be paying an extra like $200 a month just in interest alone. If we can get like the best case scenario would be like 2% interest for like U.S. Treasuries are about 2%, and then you can cut $200 a month off of your rent. But for a 2-bedroom, initially, to build it in reality is probably going to be like $600, maybe $700 if the interest rates keep going up. But then once we get into like mass production and the contractors like know what they're doing and all the ducks are in a row, so to speak, you can get that down to like 500-ish. And then if interest rates drop, you can get that down to like 300. 300 for a 2-bedroom is like the holy grail that I'm hoping for. With inflation, it might bump up to 400, but so like 300 to 400 for a 2-bedroom is the long-term goal.
Yeah, and that sounds very affordable, right? Compared to like most places in the U.S. And it seems like it'd be worth it because you don't have to drive anywhere. Everywhere is easily accessible. All your friends are here because what is the population, like maximum population that you would expect to live here?
So it's set to 144,000 for biblical reasons.
Yeah.
And another reason is when a city gets too large, then it gets like you start suffocating. So you want to maintain like a small to medium sized city. That's what I'm most happy with, and I think psychologically that's what people are going to be most happy with. The whole no windows thing is a big hit psychologically, and there's nothing you can really do about the no windows problem. So you want to have as many psychological benefits as possible to offset that. So like the communal living is a big one, the affordability is a big one, the 2-day work week is a big one, and the smaller city sizes is also a big benefit. So like
windows.
Yeah, so it's a have you seen the video?
No.
So it's a 3-dimensional modular city that's built in pieces. And so there's skyscrapers in every direction. It's like super high density. So there's no windows, you don't see the sun, but the rooftop is 100% green. So it's all parks on the roof, and everyone has access to the roof.
Okay.
Yeah, so like everyone will have like an awe-inspiring moment when the elevator comes up to the rooftop and you see like the sun and the clouds, because unfortunately you can probably go like a week or two without seeing the sun, which is going to be a hit psychologically, or you might get used to it, who knows.
Wait, you're gonna get lost inside the city? Is that what you're saying? Like,
well no, if you like don't go outside for like a week, that is a total possibility.
I would hope people would want to spend a lot of time outside, considering all the outdoor spaces I see and how many parks and places you could have gatherings or parties or events. How much can go on in this one city on a day? It's pretty incredible to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
It depends on if it's New York or not.
Yeah, one of the strange paradoxes is that even though it's super high density, it actually has more parks like per capita than your average city, because it uses 100% of the rooftop as a park.
That's what I like most about it. It keeps the natural environment there. You got the trees, you got the birds, you got water, you got open spaces. It seems to be built with human mental health in mind, while also being a sustainable option for cities in the future. Because city I live in, San Antonio, Texas, yeah, it's just fucking traffic everywhere. Like, fuck cars, at this point. Especially when a city gets that big. Nobody wants to be stuck in traffic commuting to work for an hour a day. And plus, the air pollution is terrible. Why do we continue to do this when we have like much better options available to us, exactly like Arkology?
Yeah, there's a formula. I don't think I've made a video on this. I should. Of as the city size increases, the commutes are squared. So it's an exponential equation, because not only is there more people in the city, but they're also spread farther apart. So it's like X times X. So by capping the city at 144,000, you also cap the commute distances and the commute times. And then by making it dense, by stacking it, you reduce the commute times again by like 8x. So you get tremendously short commutes. And yeah, it's really just like, there's so much you can describe mathematically, which I think is the most compelling part about it, because I have some naysayers, not many. I have more people that love it than I have people that hate it. And like with the naysayers, you can always just fall back on the math and just say, well, this is all algebraic. Like you're arguing with algebra right now.
Yeah, no, you got it all planned out. Like you have it. You started with sustainability in mind, and you want to build like multiple of these, right? So
it's not just going to be one Arkology, but once you have one Arkology, people are going to want, hey, I want an Arkology in my country, you know, and then it's going to keep going and going and going, or at least if it's not Arkology, then I hope it gets us thinking more about the city of the future, right? Because how else are we going to get those cities of the future that we've been visualizing all these years in science fiction novels and movies? This is like the first real attempt at that I've seen.
Yeah, I was actually inspired partially. Well, the name came from SimCity 2000. Do you remember that? I don't know if you played it.
Like, it kind of reminds me of SimCity.
The final building in SimCity 2000 was an Arkology, but with a C instead of a K. And it was super high density, and it had all of and its statistics were like off the charts. So that's where the name came from, actually.
It's really fascinating. What do people do for work? There are going to be like there's going to be a lot of companies that'll move in, right? Like fast food restaurants will come and set up their place, and you'll have kind of like renting spaces like a mall.
Yeah. So the beauty that people don't really think about it, with the lower costs and the lower rent and things like that, people will naturally switch to like a 2 or 3 day work week, something like that. And then you have twice the jobs with the same number of businesses if you're working 2 days a week, or it's actually 2.5, right? So, so a lot of the jobs will come from that switch to the 2 day work week. And then, the UBI will also allow people to be like stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads and things like that. So not only do you get your 2 day work week, but you could potentially have 1 income households on a 2 day work week. So it's like really crazy.
Wow, and that you've calculated it, and that's all totally possible, right? It really just shows like how silly the system we have right now is.
Oh yeah, with all of this debt. Like the debt's crazy too. And then you spend 13 years in school and then 6 years in college, and like you spent 20 years of your life like preparing for what and learning for what? Some job that's been invented to like maintain the 40-hour work week. And then you have to
Why are we doing
to
this?
Commute to your job that's been invented just to fulfill this useless need.
Right, it's like we're just filling the CEO's pockets for no reason, just because they're the ones in power and they're the ones who want it to stay like this. But that's why we can't wait for them, right? We have to bring the vision to most people and let them know that we're gonna have to be the one to step up and come together with a collective vision. And know that it's possible, and that it's worth striving for, and that it's not like just some dream in the clouds, right? And you've done a great, wonderful step by actually thinking it through and coming up with a plan. And all it needs is like more exposure. That's what I feel.
Yeah. I try to post it online like once a day usually, but stuff like this is great. And something I've done from the start was it always had to be grounded in economics, it always had to be grounded in physics, it always had to be grounded in like being practical. I think like there's a great disservice done by Hollywood and science fiction, where they actually go in the opposite direction. They say, okay, I'm going to make this as unpractical and uneconomic as possible. And that assures that nothing like it will ever occur and no one will ever try it. So I tried to keep the whole city, the whole thing grounded in practicality and in science and in mathematics.
Wow. And you have like a modular system going, right? Like there's a lot of hexagons involved, and these are like mass produced.
Yeah, so there's essentially everywhere an Arkology would be built, we would actually build like a little factory for the hexagons. And
Oh,
the
okay.
hexagons they're designed to be very, very simple. They're designed to be as simple and as cheap as possible. The entire city, so the hexagon is made of, I think, like under 10 parts. So a lot of engineers, they determine the complexity of a system by how many parts it has. And so like your average car has like 1,000 parts or like 1,500 parts. And then, Starship would have even less parts than a car. Starship probably has like 250 parts. These hexagons have, I believe, like 9 parts. It's like 8 or 9 parts. And that means the entire city has 8 or 9 parts. And the infinite variations that you can create with this modular system, with these modular hexagons, has 8 or 9 parts. So it's extremely simple.
It's extremely simple, and that's the primary structure of what the city's made out of. So you will see like a lot of hexagons everywhere, and people are going to be working to build the city, it seems, because like you said, the factory is right there. So you can fit a lot in a hexagon. How many? Because each hexagon is like a skyscraper, right?
Yeah, it's 10,000 square feet footprint and 3 stories tall. So the 3 stories is very important psychologically. Like, you want to give people like a sense of like spatial abundance. So
Right.
since the whole no windows thing, once again, you combat that by having very high ceilings, and then you can also fill that 3-dimensional airspace with 3 residential floors if you wanted to. So then it allows like very creative blueprints, very exciting blueprints, and like lots and lots of novelty and luxury.
Right, and I would hope that people spend more time outside in this kind of environment, because there's so much effort put towards being outside and outdoor recreation, which is one of the things I like the most. Personally, I'm of the belief that humans are much happier when they spend at least like a good hour or so outside, and this brings a lot of reason to be outside, right? You don't have people aren't going to be driving; they're going to be riding their bike, going to be walking, taking the trolley system that's hanging from the cable cars.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. In the most recent video, there was the 3 theaters, or like concert halls, whatever you want to call them, amphitheaters, and those should be pretty exciting too. And they're all within walking distance, which is my favorite part about that. And the water park has been something that's been in the back of my mind for months, and I'm really glad to like at least get version 1.0 down on paper. It's not the final version. None of this stuff is like the final version. So I'm always open to collaboration. I'm always open for like just getting ideas from people, getting what they want to see, what they'd love to have as some leisure, some pastime, stuff like that. I'm always looking for more leisure. So you can't have too much.
Seems to be the focus of the city largely, which is why this is so cool, right? Because it's if we can just get this space going and see that that they're actually working less, and they have all these extra things to go, and they have better community, then basically there'll be no incentive to keep doing the things that we're doing as regards to the status quo, right? Like everyone will just start creating their own vision of what a city should look like. People will start living the way they want to live because they know it's possible.
Yeah, I have a 1.5-hour video that actually is a tutorial on how to make your own city. And I don't know how many views it has, but I think it's pretty interesting. And it's kind of like, I have this weird vision where kids will actually have like a high school class that's kind of similar to the path that I've been on. Because why not, right? children are very creative, and they see things that we don't. And
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and if we have to make like 200 of these cities or 500 of these cities, then it took me like probably 200 hours to do the whole thing, something like that, 5 weeks. So that's 1,000 weeks of labor, creative labor that has to be done. And if you want a good result, let's say 5 people are collaborating on each city, so that's 5,000 hours of labor. So you could easily turn this into like a high school or a college course.
Like building out the city and how to design your own city basically would be a course in the Arkology.
Or right now in existing society, all you need is a computer. So a good computer. And
See, that's why we need vision. That's why we need visionaries.
Another thing that people don't necessarily realize is, since it's modular, since it's standardized, it's kind of like it opens up this amazing opportunity for artists and engineers to make like assets or modules of
Right.
that connect to the city. So if you look closely, there's like 3 or 4 different balconies. There's different connecting pieces, and they're all kind of like reused over and over and over again. Different parks, different like engineering arrangements, and this opens up the door for any engineer in the world to build these assets, to build these pieces, and then those pieces could be mass produced by a company, and that company could then sell like kits that you just assemble on site. So then those kits could be assembled by any city anywhere in the world, and everything fits exactly how it should because all of the hexagons are standardized. And this would like it could be an entire industry. It could be an entire field of study, really. And our cities would, like, if you think my city is really impressive now, if we if humanity goes down this path in 10 or 20 years, like, it'll be the cities will be almost unrecognizable compared to what I've put together.
So this would be just the very first step.
Yeah, this is like version 1.0. So in the future we could see like 2.0, 3.0, etc., etc.
Right. It's the scope of the vision that I feel is going to be most beneficial to humanity.
Yeah,
And-
people are not used to thinking about that kind of scale and that kind of time frame. So the Bible says that when Jesus returns, he creates a 1,000-year kingdom, a 1,000-year golden age. And most politicians, they're thinking on the scale of like 2 years or 4 years. In the political realm, like, people talk about like 2024, and then their whole vision politically is vote for D or vote for R. Like, this is the grand vision of humanity is voting in the next election. And it breaks my heart. It really does.
Or it's like, does this person support abortion, or does this person, want to, I don't know, deep, like, fund schools, or it's just old. It's just like we've been playing
It's
the same
sad,
politics
yeah.
games over and over and over. We need that's why we need like an actual something to get behind, right? And not just platitudes. And really, I don't really know how politicians are going to bring it. It's going to have to be the artists who step up.
Absolutely. I'm all about it. And I'm always open for collaboration. Like, I love collaborating. All artists really do. I don't think I've ever met an artist who hates collaboration.
Mm.
And another beautiful thing is the hexagons are blank. They're empty. So it allows for people to do whatever they want inside of that space. And then you can connect adjacent hexagons to make 20,000 square feet. You can connect vertically 2 hexagons to make 6 stories instead of 3 stories. The elevators are also modular, so you can put the modular elevators anywhere you want. You could have your modular elevator inside of your 6-story hexagon. And then what are you going to do with that space? Who knows? Like, you could, I did this thing recently with the tribal treaty. I don't know if you saw that video, but the tribal treaty is essentially like a contract that binds like 20 or 30 or 50 people together. And they all become like this little commune, this little team. And then that team could share that space and fill out that space and create a residential or commercial blueprint for that space. And then that's like their playground, that's their home, and it all exists inside of this 3-dimensional city, this 3-dimensional structure.
Is that like 20 to 40 people in one hexagon would be a tribal? Would that be like a tribe?
Yeah. 40 is a little on the high end. You might want to do like 20 to 30 per hexagon.
Yeah, and I wonder, on an average, how many people would intermingle with one another? Like, generally, like, a person could have, like, relationships with about, like, 100 people in their lives, or, like, make acquaintances with like, 100 people. So having those spaces in the middle to just mingle, right? People can have a lot of free time. So you will find people mingling out in the square, but also you can go to any part of the city and meet up with someone perhaps that you've never met before, even if they're far away. On the other side of the city, you still can get there.
Yeah, that's the whole point of a city, right? Is to meet strangers. Like, why else would you live in a city? To be close to your job? What a sad excuse. What a sad.
But see, that's the thing is that, like, I live in a city. Right? Well, most cities are like mostly suburbs, so. And people don't, apparently, like, a lot of people don't like going outside and meeting their neighbors. It can take a while to get anywhere on foot in a city. So it's like people don't go anywhere unless they know where they're going, unless they're gonna drive there, because, again, traffic. People don't want to be stuck in traffic for no reason. So here it seems like you could literally just explore the city and meet someone new, and then make best friends with them, and then hang out with them for all the rest of your days that you live there.
Yeah, I get the feeling that suburbia is like not really designed to meet new people. It's like everything, all the parking lots are all isolated, all of the buildings are all isolated. There's a few places I feel like where people do commingle and people do meet, at least where I live. And everyone's drawn naturally to those areas. Everyone's like, just like psychologically attracted to them, like moths to a flame. And that's like the heart of the city, is where strangers meet each other. So I want to encourage that as much as possible, with like the blueprints and with so with the tessellated triangles. All of the road system is triangles, and all triangles, if you notice, they all meet in a 6-way intersection. So at that intersection, you'll have like gathering places. They're I call them designated loitering areas. So loitering is encouraged. It's not illegal, it's encouraged. And there's going to be a bunch of those inside the city too.
I see a lot of them. I see a lot of potential here, which is cool. And then I would make sure too that we have like large parks outside the city, right? Just these natural spaces where, nobody's gonna develop or build here, right? At any moment you can walk outside the city limits and be in nature.
Yeah, that's very important. The whole city is surrounded by gardens and forests and campgrounds. There's a catacombs too, so to save space we make a catacombs instead of a graveyard, and you can just keep digging down and down and down into the bedrock. So that's how you get 1,000 years of graves, is you just dig straight down with like really dense catacombs. And then we were gonna connect people's Facebook accounts with their graves. So when you go to visit Grandma, you can like load up Grandma's Facebook.
Okay.
And then there would be like a coffee shop / bar in the catacombs. So you could like get a drink while you like browse Grandma's Facebook, and it'll be a little weird, but I think people will get used to it and really come to appreciate the how strange and but interesting an afternoon like that would be.
That's really funny. See, is there anything else that we should cover that I haven't asked you about yet? Anything that you want them, the viewers to know about the city?
Yeah, so there's this amazing thing. It's a tethered Zeppelin. So
I see it.
yeah, that's was new in version 9. It's tethered in 3 places, and it works like a 3D printer. There's this something called a Delta printer. That's a type of 3D printer. It's very fancy. It's very fun to watch.
Wait.
So it uses the same engineering principles as a Delta 3D printer.
Oh my god.
So it's like it's like
so
upside
cool.
down. The Zeppelin is a 3D printer that's suspended in the air upside down.
It's a giant 3D printer for building a city. Oh my god, that is so cool.
Yeah, so it works as a crane while the city's under construction. And then after the city's done, you can use it for like skydiving. You can put a bar up there. You can use it for just like an observation deck, things like that. Do weddings up there. And then the tethers can release and it'll float higher, or the tethers can pull the cables in and it comes lower. And then any one of the 3 cables can extend or release to control its X and Y coordinates as well above the city. So it's a really fancy invention. As far as I know, that's like patentable. That's a brand new invention. So yeah. So it may or may not be patented. I copyright stuff too because copyrights are cheap. So that's one of my prouder innovations in the most recent video. The water park is kind of cool, but like it doesn't have any wild innovations much like that. And that's one example I meant with the engineering, like the engineering innovations that can happen over the next 10, 20 years. Really crazy stuff like that I could never think of, or I haven't thought of yet. Like the Starship being caught out of the air. That's such a weird, like, bizarre thing that the SpaceX team came up with. You could see innovations similar to that, except it's applied to Arkology. So really exciting stuff, like really brilliant unknowns that someone just needs to have that spark of imagination and that vision to make it happen.
Absolutely, and that's all about what the Infinity community is about, right? And so we want to have as many visionaries as possible on this platform, and the idea is that we're not going to be stepping on one another's vision, but helping each other out and helping each other flesh out the visions that we have, because everyone's got a dream that they want to work towards, right, in their heads. It's just a matter of setting it in motion and getting the drive to create going.
Yeah, and I think Arkology is a good building block for everyone. For a long time, I used to call it the USB of skyscrapers, which is a beautiful way of putting it, and I think it really describes like the essence of the system. And it's shocking that no one's done this yet. I mean, look at the computer hardware system, the automotive system, like nuts and bolts. All of these things they've been standardized for decades and decades. So why haven't we standardized buildings? It's just this like weird,
right?
This weird blind spot that humanity has, and I guess that's opportunity for me and for all of us to move forward, right? Because once you see this blind spot, it opens up like a whole new vista of like work to be done, things to discover, things to explore, and it's once it really takes off, it's going to be so exciting. It's going to be such an exciting time to be alive, and such an exciting thing to be a part of.
And I would imagine everyone who gets to move into this community will feel like they are part of something huge, right? This is a historical thing to be a part of. So just living there every single day, you're going to be met with a living, breathing vision of which you are a part. And I can't imagine there would be anyone living in the city who would not want to partake in that creative endeavor.
Absolutely, yeah. We're all looking for engaging citizens, and creative people as are in very high demand, and people with investment money too. Like even if you could like purchase a condo outright, that's very helpful, because then you don't need to get that capital. So, but first I want to get the first one built, and once the first one's built, then the gravy train will be much better lubricated. So yeah, that's the hardest part is building the first one, and then it's all downhill from there. And just for a frame of reference, the version 7 city, the big city, has like 7,500 hexagons roughly. I haven't actually counted all of them, but the guesstimate is 7,500. So yeah, the first one's the hardest. The other 7,499 are all downhill from there,
or uphill, you could say.
Yeah, climbing
because
the summit.
It just gets easier and easier and easier. Once you get one going on and say, okay, we can just literally just do what they did here and make improvements as we see fit. But the standardization is probably going to be the biggest innovation as far as like city building goes. And that big Led Zeppelin blimp with giant 3D printer, yeah, definitely get that patented.
Yeah, I don't know how I just popped into my head one day. Oh yeah, because I wanted a Zeppelin above the city, but then wind would be an issue. Your Zeppelin would always have to be fighting the wind. So I was like, okay, we'll just tether the Zeppelin. That's an obvious solution to that problem. And then I just hit me. I was like, wait a second. If I have 3 tethers, you can motorize each tether and then control your XYZ coordinates of the Zeppelin.
See, it builds itself.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of engineering, like, a lot of times you need an engineering problem in order to create a solution. So, like, the solution can't come without the problem. The problem has to come first.
Do you think at first people will just kind of be visiting? Because it really does look like it could be a theme park on its own. People would you would probably start building the city, maybe like one corner of it, and you make sure that you're building everything in the correct order so that people have community centers as it's being built up.
I haven't really thought about how I would prioritize it. I was thinking, like, in my head, the theme park came later, so I was just gonna do that later. It depends on how much land I have, how much funding I have, how much interest I have in terms of people and stuff like that. So a lot of those decisions are like, they're kind of hard to make without gauging all of those things. The entire city is, well, version 7 was 320 acres, I believe. And then version 9 would probably be like 400, 450, something like that. So it's a pretty big chunk of land for the whole thing. You can build them smaller though. They don't have to be that large. You can start to get the benefits of the system pretty much with like 10 hexagons or 20 hexagons. So I was land shopping recently, and there was 20 acres of undeveloped, And so I put together a 20-acre arc that's like, just threw it together really quick. And it's still pretty nice. It's not like as awe-inspiring as the 144,000. But even with 20 acres, you can still do some very innovative and interesting stuff.
For sure. I see like there are certain there are greenhouses for like growing your own food and stuff, right?
Oh, so those are for tropical birds, tropical plants, stuff like that. They could have a small amount of food growing, but nothing significant compared to the city population.
Is sustainability a focus when you design these?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting rid of the automobile or reducing automobile use is a big part. And then an added bonus is the thermal efficiencies is another big added bonus. When I first started, when I was first messing around, it was more actually the mass production was actually my main focus, and then the fossil fuel efficiencies and things like that actually were just like a happy accident for the most part. So
it really just goes to show you how much the automobile how central it's been to the way we've designed our society. And as soon as you say, hey, wait, maybe we don't necessarily have to tailor everything to these big gas guzzling machines anymore, because we can get around on ourselves and we're much more clever with how we can get around the city.
Yeah, something I tell people that I think is like a light bulb moment, that it was a light bulb moment for me, so I assume it is for other people. But I tell them that we designed all of our infrastructure around our largest vehicle, because you have to design the entire society around your largest vehicle. And our largest vehicle is like an 18-wheel semi. So we have to design the entire society around an 18-wheeler, which is so ridiculous. And then when you move to Arkology, the largest vehicle is like a 4-person golf cart or a forklift or something like this. So when you have that massive change in the largest allowed vehicle, then you can have this massive change in your actual infrastructure.
City built for humans, by humans.
Exactly.
I wonder how much of the building process will involve automation, though, because that big 3D printer thing does seem like you could even probably have that operating on a program, putting things together, and maybe you probably still need a lot of manual labor, but...
So it's mostly for moving material. Assembling material is still a very human-centered thing. I have talked to a guy who is buying a brand new cement printer, like one of the fancy new models, and it's a very small machine. The machine's easy to set up. It's a lightweight machine, and I was asking him about the weight of the walls and the potential weight of like a 2-story 3D printed household. And it turns out that the 3D printed houses are actually light enough for the hexagons to hold up, even though they're made out of cement instead of like... One of the reasons I went with traditional residential construction is because it's cheap and it's lightweight. So I wanted the building to be as light as possible. But it turns out the 3D printed cement houses are light enough for the steel frame, which means you could have 3D cement printed houses inside of Arkology, and you can move around this cement printer from location to location, and then just hit a button and have it make a house, and then move it to the next location, hit another button, have it make another house.
Damn.
Yeah, so we can automate that process in 3-dimensionally inside of the city.
I see. So plenty of innovations. I think it shows that humanity has a lot of promise, right? That
if we want the future to be like we've been imagining all these years, we're going to be the ones to create it, and it's going to be happening now.
Yeah, the technology has been around for a long time. I would say probably World War I was the first time we were able to build arcologies. We had all of the industrial capacity required to build arcologies, and the electrical grid was a huge necessity. The lights, obviously, huge necessity. But as far as computers go, like we don't really need computers to build arcologies. It's not really a necessary step. But I suppose, like, to visualize it, to like show it all, it's such a helpful tool, and the internet is such a helpful tool, social media such a helpful tool to spread new visions and create new visions and share new visions. And maybe that's what we were waiting for, is CGI software and social media and kind of like a bottom-up renaissance.
Or even just like a Lego set. Like, it looks like something that you'd really have built on a Lego set, and you can get an idea of its structure as you're putting it together, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that it's based on the real blueprints. So people will be putting this thing together, especially kids, and they'll be like, "Wow, this is a real place that I could go to." And that's real vision for sure, because I knew when I was playing with toys as a kid, like, I wanted to go to, I don't know, Hyrule Field when I was playing Legend of Zelda, or like, to me that was a real place already, and I would have dreams about visiting this place, like, just throughout the day. And to think, like, that's the level of inspiration that I'm talking about, when if you were to create like something like a toy that is a replica of the real thing as it would be built, because then people would understand how simple it is and how ingenious it is putting it together.
Yeah, it is kind of like blocks. I had a project to 3D print hexagons that you could assemble and stuff and link together, but I don't know, I just got sidetracked and it got away from me. I got to get back to that. But yeah, I just love CGI. It's learning that was a really transformative thing for me. I recommend everyone do it. It's such an infinite tool. There's no software like it. It's almost daunting in its open-ended nature. You're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like,
you can do anything.
Yeah, it can make anything. So that was really transformative for me. I think I learned that in like 2015 for 3D printing, actually. And then I use Blender, and it has so many different features, abilities. You can add colors, add textures, obviously. You can animate things. You can animate the camera and then render the animated camera. It even does 360 VR. One of my videos is 360 VR. And I actually, when I watch a video with the VR headset, I actually like get dizzy. I have to sit down because it feels like you're like
Cool.
feels like you're actually going up and down through the city. So that's a really, really cool. I mean, unbelievable innovation in the digital space.
And just having this kind of skill, just to be creating these virtual sculptures. That's why it would be such a wonderful thing to have this as a basic part of the curriculum, say like in high schools, like you were saying earlier, because then you can start actualizing your vision, just like you've done here, and then you can share that with other people, and it's not as hard as you might think to create something physical.
The tutorial is an hour and a half on YouTube, and all you need is Blender, which is a free software, and then you need a decent computer. So when you get started with an empty file, your computer speed actually doesn't really matter. And then once you add more stuff and more stuff and more stuff, it becomes increasingly a problem. So, but yeah, I've thought about the next city. So there could be 6 cities all around each other, all surrounding one central area, and then each city is going to be different. This is like
Whoa.
yeah. So there's going to be 6 cities. I'm finally done with the first one. The second one I was thinking could be shaped like a tree, and it could have like a river flowing through the center of the tree. And like
cool.
The canopy would be taller, and then the trunks and the roots would get lower and lower. So yeah, the canopy, I haven't decided an exact height, but it might be like 30 stories, something like that. So you could look
Incredible.
over. Yeah, so you could look over all the root system going out into the distance, and everything would slope down. So like, it would just be like cascading, with the river flowing through the center of the tree.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's that you will not see that video probably until New Year's at the earliest. I would say maybe even like spring 2023.
mm-hmm. Well, you can't rush genius.
Yeah, I like to take vacations. I don't work myself too hard, believe it or not.
And that's the great thing, is that it's a passion project. It's a hobby. Have fun with your vision. Like, this doesn't have to be work. This whole endeavor could be a passion project for everyone involved.
Yeah, absolutely. The interiors I really encourage, because you can never have too many of those. And as far as the artistically minded person goes, there's something called freestyle roads, and they're a type of road where the owner of the property determines where and what the road does and looks like. So the road is up to, like, the road could actually go through like a restaurant. So like, as you're walking down through the road, you actually go through like the dining area of the restaurant, and you get all of the smells, you get like the vibe of the restaurant, and it could walk through anything you want, any kind of artistic displays, any kind of design requirements that you'd like. And there's actually no vehicles on a freestyle road, because the speed limit is walking. That's the speed limit. And you can even have like staircases and stuff and balconies. It's really limitless, which is so beautiful. That's actually one of my next projects, is to make like a freestyle road path or like display. And it would probably be from roundabout to roundabout is 5 hexagons long. So that would probably be like the length of your average freestyle road. And it would be like kind of like a marketplace. It could be commercial, it could be residential. It could even be industrial, why not? And you could have like pipes all over the place, and like machinery and stuff, and people could just walk right by it. As long as you don't stick your hand in the machinery, it's fine, right? Put up some ropes.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. I've worked in industrial facilities before, and for the first like 2 or 3 weeks you're there, you're just like in awe of the machinery. It's like real life how it's made. But then you kind of get used to it. You're like, okay, I'm going into this like marvel of modern engineering. Just spending my day there, doing some menial task to like make sure it doesn't jam up. But yeah, that's these are all creative outlets that people could contribute to the project. Is the freestyle roads is a big one.
Just being able to walk wherever you want. I know if I lived there, I would be spending all my days just exploring the city and discovering new stuff and meeting new people.
Yeah, it's designed to give as much creativity as possible to the residents, to the people living in it. If you read the city-state constitution, it specifically says that, like, in 2 or 3 spots. It says, you own your 3-dimensional airspace, and you can do whatever you please with your 3-dimensional airspace.
Do what you please.
Yeah, so the freestyle roads is it's something that people don't comprehend yet. They don't quite fully understand it. Even amongst my fans, they're not like, because I haven't dedicated like a 2-part series to it, 2-part video series to it. So a lot of people don't understand how powerful it is, but imagine like blurring the lines between a person's house and the road. blurring the lines between a public park and a road. That's kind of like what the freestyle roads are. They're or like blurring the lines between a marketplace and a road.
And it all kind of just melts together. Either way, like, this is going to be somewhere that you're going to want to be anyway. Like, you might as well enjoy wherever you're going, right? Like, you might as well have nice scenery along the way.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention too, regarding the creativity. So I don't really believe in like the boring zoning process where you have residential, commercial, industrial. I think it's kind of like outdated. So I was thinking, a realistic or good way to zone the city is through style, through architectural style. And then I thought, what would have a really futuristic architectural style? Well, I thought like Warhammer 40k came into my head. So then you could do themed neighborhoods based on different Warhammer 40k species or armies. Did you see that video by any chance?
I think I saw it in my feed the other day.
It's from last year, I believe. So
it sounds familiar. I was thinking about Warhammer earlier. Like, did I see that video earlier?
I did at least one video on it, and just different sections of the city are different Warhammer armies themes. So you have like your Space Marines, you have your Eldar, you have your Orcs, you have your even Tyranid. The Tyranid are like the crazy looking aliens. So imagine like going outside of your house and your whole neighborhood is filled with creative people, and they're all on board with the idea that this is the Tyranid neighborhood. So all of their decorations are like this like disgusting looking alien life forms. Like it would be the weirdest place to live, but like if you know that going in, if everyone knows that that's what's happening in that part of the city, it's perfectly fine, right? And you can zone 3-dimensionally too, since it's a 3-dimensional city. So the top floor could be Space Marines, and then you could have Orcs below that, and then you could have your like Eldar or whatever below that, and then the rooftop is up to the government. The government determines what the rooftop looks like. So ideally, we would employ the best artists in the city to do the rooftop. So like we would walk around the city and we would say, "Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that." And it's as simple as knocking on the person's door and being like, "Hey, could we pay you to do something beautiful for the rooftop?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, that sounds great."
Yeah. Might as well, right? You're living on a piece of art, and that's the kind of mindset you want to get people in who are living here. Is that this is our passion project. This is our creation. This is our legacy. This is what unites us.
Yeah.
Our common vision.
Something that's crazy too, I didn't even realize this until earlier this year. The Space Marines in Warhammer 40k, they actually build Arkologies called hives. And then they live in these hives. I was like, what? Like, I kind of knew that in the back of my head because I played Warhammer when I was a kid, but I never made the connection until after I already started the project.
Yo, this is it.
Yeah.
That's epic.
like everything came together. I had this like aha moment earlier this year when I was like, "What? This is the hive."
This is the hive. This is the real hive.
Yeah, it was a profound. It made my whole like month when those neurons clicked.
Now I'm like watching a Warhammer 40K, and it's going over the structure, economy, currency of the hive cities.
Oh, nice! I'm gonna have to watch that.
So I actually went in depth and explored how it would work. I want to know how that compares to your project.
Yeah, and I'm really curious. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah. Anything else we should cover?
I don't know. We covered a lot. I don't know. What do you think? We only briefly touched on the Constitution, but there's a UBI system. We could throw the link in the podcast video.
Right.
So there's a 60-second overview or 90-second overview that covers it pretty nicely.
Yeah, could you like go over like quickly like how the UBI would work and the governmental system that you have planned out for Arkology?
So the UBI is based on age, which is a really good way to do it. As you get older, it turns into Social Security, but it's this like slope. It's this cascading gray area, and it's $60 at 10 years old, $660 at 70. And there's a direct democracy process that can adjust those numbers and adjust the taxation. So there's no Congress. Congress is gone. The executive appoints the judicial. So, and then you can have a vote of no confidence for the executive, which also requires a minority vote. So you can actually overthrow the executive branch with a 1/6 minority. And in one version, there's 6 people as the executive, and then in another version, there's 1 person. So, yeah, the executive appoints the judicial, so they're in charge of like hiring and firing. And the reason for that is because I think one of the reasons our political system is so effed up is that people just vote straight Republican or they vote straight Democrat. So someone who's like horribly corrupt can get into any of those positions just by winning the primary, which is a really easy thing to do since like there's so many positions. So really a better system is to have the citizens elect like the human resources department of the government, and then the responsibility of that human resources department of the executive is to hire quality candidates and then to fire people who just are corrupt or not doing their job properly. And when corruption becomes a problem, or if corruption becomes a problem, then you want the vote of no confidence. There's also, it's very libertarian, so there's also a citizens arrest process where you can actually arrest government employees and put them on trial. It creates a citizens court, and you can put the government employees on trial for violating people's rights or like stealing money, embezzling money, stuff like that. What else? There's a lot to it. Well, it's actually only 6 pages, so it's like its own podcast, really. I kind of separate the political system and the infrastructure because they're like 2 kind of separate projects that kind of coalesce together. They kind of combine. But yeah, the big one you have to remember is that to change tax or UBI rate changes is 2/3 majority for a direct democracy vote. And then to change the Constitution, to change the law, is a 5/6 vote. So the executive cannot write law. That's the big one. They only do hiring and firing. And then I got rid of the legislature entirely because it's just a corrupt mess that wastes and spends and steals billions and trillions of dollars. So So yeah, there's a bit more to the Constitution, but that's like the 10-minute version.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think that about covers everything. So, I want to thank you for coming on the Infinity Podcast. You were our very first guest, and I'm happy to have this level of vision at the forefront of the podcast, right? Because I want people to know that their vision is important, and you can be a part of this, right? Just go find something that you're passionate about, and go work with other people who are also passionate about that, and get your vision out there. And we are the ones to create the future. We are the music makers, right? And we are the dreamers of the dreams.
I 100% agree. And I am committed to opening the door for other people. I'm committed to giving people space to build and to co-create with this whole Arkology system.
Because it's modular.
Yeah. You are the sole arbiter of your three-dimensional airspace.
Nice. All right. Well, I think that about covers it all. Thank you so much, man, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate the vision, and I think you're going to be inspiring a lot of people, especially the younger generation, that this kind of thing is possible. Just if you can put your mind to it, anything's possible.
Within the laws of physics and economics.
Yeah, let's say that.
You need the asterisk, whatever.
Okay.